David Martinez adjusted his expensive watch as he stepped out of his black Mercedes in front of the small downtown cafe. At 52, he owned 3 successful tech companies and had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. His perfectly tailored suit and confident stride showed he was used to getting whatever he wanted. But today was different. Today, nothing felt right. Walking beside him was his 16-year-old daughter, Emma. She had been born without the ability to hear or speak, something that had changed David's entire world. Emma had beautiful dark hair that fell to her shoulders and bright green eyes that seemed to notice everything around her. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a small notebook where she wrote messages when people didn't understand sign language. David had spent millions on doctors, specialists, and treatments hoping to help Emma hear. He had hired the best tutors and sent her to expensive schools. Nothing worked. Emma remained in her silent world, and David felt like he was failing as a father every single day. He loved his daughter more than anything, but he didn't know how to connect with her. The cafe they entered was nothing like the fancy restaurants David usually visited. It was called Sunrise Cafe and had simple wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and the smell of fresh coffee in the air. The walls were painted yellow and had local artwork hanging on them. It wasn't the kind of place a millionaire would normally choose, but Emma had pointed to it during their drive and made gestures showing she wanted to go inside. David rarely said no to Emma. He felt guilty about all the times his work had kept him away from her. Her mother had died in a car accident when Emma was only 8 years old. Since then, David had tried to be both mother and father, but he often felt lost and confused. He threw money at every problem, hoping it would help, but Emma seemed more distant from him each year. As they walked into the cafe, David noticed it was busy with the lunch crowd. Families sat at tables talking and laughing. Friends shared stories over coffee. Couples held hands while eating sandwiches. The noise of conversation filled the air, but David knew Emma experienced none of this. She lived in complete silence, and he wondered what that must feel like. They found an empty table near the window. David pulled out Emma's chair for her, and she smiled politely, but didn't meet his eyes. This had become normal. Emma was always polite and well-behaved. But there was a wall between them that David couldn't break down. He had tried to learn sign language several times, but always got too busy with work to continue. Emma had given up trying to teach him after he missed too many practice sessions. The cafe had a warm, friendly feeling that made David slightly uncomfortable. He was used to business meetings in cold conference rooms and fancy restaurants where everyone knew who he was. Here, no one cared about his wealth or success. He was just another customer, and it felt strange. Emma sat quietly looking out the window at people walking by on the street. She watched a mother pushing a baby in a stroller, an old man walking his dog, and teenagers laughing as they passed. David watched his daughter and wondered what she was thinking. He wished he could ask her, but their communication was limited to simple gestures and the notes she wrote. Several waitresses moved around the cafe taking orders and serving food. David expected typical service. Someone would come to their table, take their order quickly, and leave them alone. That's how it worked in the places he usually went. But as he watched the staff, he noticed something different about this place. The waitresses seemed to genuinely care about their customers. They asked about people's families, remembered regular customers' favorite drinks, and took time to chat. One waitress in particular caught David's attention. She was a young black woman, probably in her early 20s, with a bright smile and energetic way of moving around the cafe. Her name tag said Maya. She had her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and wore the cafe's uniform of a green apron over a white shirt. There was something special about her that David couldn't quite identify. She seemed to light up every table she visited. Maya was currently serving an elderly couple at a nearby table. David heard her asking about their grandchildren and laughing at something the man said. She refilled their coffee without being asked, and seemed to genuinely enjoy talking with them. David had never seen service like this. In his world, people served him because they had to, because he was rich and important. But Maya seemed to serve people because she actually cared about them. Emma continued staring out the window, occasionally glancing around the cafe. David wished he knew how to start a conversation with her. They could sit together for hours without really communicating. He could buy her anything she wanted, take her anywhere in the world, but he couldn't give her what she needed most, a father who understood her. As David watched Maya work, he noticed something unusual. When she approached a table where a deaf man was sitting alone, she didn't just point to the menu or write things down. Instead, her hands began moving in smooth, flowing gestures. She was using sign language, and the man's face lit up with joy. They had a full conversation using their hands, and both of them were smiling and laughing. David sat up straighter in his chair. He had never seen anyone outside of Emma's teachers use sign language so naturally. Maya wasn't just making basic gestures, she was fluent. Her hands moved quickly and gracefully, and the deaf customer responded enthusiastically. They talked for several minutes before Maya took his order and moved on to the next table. For the first time in years, David felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this young waitress could help him understand his daughter better. He had hired expensive therapists and specialists, but none of them had the natural warmth and communication skills he was seeing in Maya. She had turned what could have been an awkward situation with the deaf customer into a joyful interaction. David found himself studying Maya more carefully as she worked. She had patience with elderly customers who took a long time to order. She was gentle with children who spilled their drinks. She remembered what regular customers liked without having to ask. But most importantly, she had taken the time to learn sign language well enough to have real conversations with deaf customers. Emma was still looking out the window when Maya started walking toward their table. David felt his heart beat faster. This could be the moment that changed everything. For months, he had watched Emma become more withdrawn and sad. The expensive schools he sent her to were good, but they didn't give her the social connections she needed. She had very few friends and spent most of her time alone. As Maya got closer, David noticed Emma glance in her direction. Something in Emma's expression changed. Her eyes became more alert, more interested. It was as if she sensed something different about this waitress compared to the hundreds of servers they had encountered in restaurants around the world. Maya reached their table with her characteristic bright smile. "Good afternoon," she said to David. "Welcome to Sunrise Cafe. This is my first time seeing you here. I'm Maya, and I'll be taking care of you today." David nodded politely and was about to respond when something extraordinary happened. Maya turned to Emma, and without hesitation, began moving her hands in perfect sign language. "Hello there. I'm Maya. What's your name?" Maya signed with fluid, natural movements. David's mouth fell open in shock. He literally felt frozen in his chair, unable to move or speak. Emma's reaction was even more dramatic. Her entire face transformed with surprise and pure joy. Her green eyes went wide, and the biggest smile David had seen in years spread across her face. Emma's hands began moving rapidly as she responded in sign language. "My name is Emma. You know sign language. I can't believe it. No one ever talks to me first." Maya's smile grew even brighter. "It's so wonderful to meet you, Emma. I love your name. How are you doing today?" Emma practically bounced in her chair with excitement. "I'm great now. My dad brought me here for lunch. He doesn't know sign language, so we don't talk much. But you can talk to me. This is the best day ever." David continued to sit in stunned silence, watching his daughter come alive in a way he hadn't seen since before her mother died. Emma was animated, happy, and communicating freely with someone for the first time in months. Her hands moved quickly as she and Maya continued their conversation. "What would you like to eat today?" Maya signed. "We have really good sandwiches and soup. What do you recommend?" Emma signed back, her excitement obvious in every gesture. "The grilled cheese sandwich is my favorite, and our tomato soup is homemade. It's perfect for a day like today," Maya responded with her hands while speaking aloud for David's benefit. David realized that Maya was deliberately including him by speaking while signing, even though she and Emma could communicate perfectly without words. This showed a level of consideration and social awareness that impressed him deeply. Emma turned to her father with questioning eyes, something she hadn't done in a long time. She was asking for his permission, but more than that, she was including him in her decision. David nodded, still too amazed to speak properly. "The grilled cheese and soup sounds perfect," he managed to say. Maya took their full order, continuing to sign with Emma throughout the process. She asked Emma questions about school, her interests, and what she liked to do for fun. Emma answered enthusiastically, sharing more information about herself than David had heard in months. When Maya walked away to place their order, Emma turned to her father with shining eyes. She picked up her notebook and wrote, "Dad, she's amazing. She treats me like a normal person. Can we come back here every day?" David looked at his daughter's written words and felt his throat tighten with emotion. Emma hadn't shown this much happiness about anything in such a long time. This simple interaction with a caring waitress had done more for his daughter than all his money and expensive treatments combined. As he sat there processing what had just happened, David realized that he had been approaching his daughter's situation all wrong. He had been trying to fix Emma's deafness instead of learning to communicate with her as she was. He had been looking for medical solutions when what Emma really needed was human connection and understanding. The busy cafe continued around them, but David felt like everything had changed in just a few minutes. His daughter was sitting across from him, truly happy for the first time in months, because a young waitress had taken the time to learn sign language and treat Emma with genuine kindness and respect. David made a decision in that moment. He was going to learn sign language properly this time. No more excuses about being too busy. No more hired tutors while he worked in another room. He was going to learn to communicate with his daughter himself, the way Maya just had. And he was going to start by coming back to this cafe as often as Emma wanted. Maya returned with their drinks and signed to Emma. "I'll be back with your food soon. It was so nice meeting you." Emma signed back, "Thank you. You made my whole day." As Maya walked away, David looked at his daughter and saw hope in her eyes for the first time in years. This chance encounter in a simple cafe had shown him exactly what he needed to do to connect with Emma. He just had to care enough to learn her language and enter her world, instead of expecting her to somehow enter his. The grilled cheese sandwich had never tasted so good, and the conversation they shared through Emma's notebook was the beginning of a completely new relationship between father and daughter. 2 weeks after their first visit to Sunrise Cafe, David Martinez found himself doing something he had never done before. He was sitting in his study at home with sign language books spread across his mahogany desk, watching online video tutorials on his laptop. His expensive business suit had been replaced with casual clothes, and his usual confident demeanor had given way to the humble concentration of a student learning something completely new. Emma had asked to return to the cafe every day since their first visit. David had agreed each time, partly because he loved seeing his daughter happy, but also because he was fascinated by watching Maya interact with Emma. The young waitress had a natural gift for making people feel special, but her connection with Emma was something extraordinary. During their daily visits, David had observed Maya carefully. She wasn't just fluent in sign language. She was gifted at using it to build genuine relationships. She remembered details about Emma's life, asked follow-up questions about things Emma had mentioned before, and treated her with the kind of respect and attention that made Emma bloom like a flower in sunlight. But David had also noticed something else. Maya worked hard for very little money. She often stayed late to help other staff members, picked up extra shifts when people called in sick, and treated every customer with kindness even when they were rude to her. She clearly struggled financially, but never let it show in her positive attitude toward others. Emma had started teaching David basic sign language in the evenings. She was patient with his clumsy attempts and encouraging when he made progress. For the first time since her mother's death, Emma seemed excited about spending time with her father. Their relationship was slowly transforming from polite distance to genuine connection. "You're getting better, Dad," Emma wrote in her notebook during one of their practice sessions. "Maya will be so impressed when you can talk to her in sign language too." David smiled at his daughter's encouragement. Learning sign language was much harder than running a business empire, but it was also more rewarding than any deal he had ever made. Every new word he learned was a step closer to understanding Emma's world. During their visits to the cafe, David had begun having brief conversations with Maya when she wasn't busy with other customers. He learned that she was 23 years old and working 2 jobs while taking classes at the community college. She was studying early childhood education because she wanted to work with deaf children. She had learned sign language because her younger brother had been born deaf, and her family couldn't afford expensive programs to help him communicate. "My brother Tommy is 15 now," Maya had told David during one of their conversations. "When he was little, my parents were told they should consider putting him in a special institution because they couldn't give him what he needed. But we didn't have money for anything fancy, so I learned sign language from library books and free online videos. Tommy and I practiced together every day after school." David had been amazed by Maya's story. While he had spent thousands of dollars on specialists for Emma, Maya had learned to communicate with her deaf brother using free resources and determination. Her love for Tommy had motivated her to become fluent in sign language, and that skill now brightened the day of every deaf customer who visited the cafe. "Tommy is the smartest kid I know," Maya continued with obvious pride. "He wants to be an engineer someday. Everyone told my parents he couldn't succeed because of his deafness, but he's already taking advanced math classes and building robots in his spare time. He just needed people who believed in him and were willing to communicate with him properly." These conversations with Maya made David realize how much Emma had been missing. She needed more than just expensive schools and private tutors. She needed genuine connections with people who saw her abilities rather than her disability. She needed to be part of a community where her deafness wasn't seen as something to be fixed or hidden. Emma had also developed a friendship with Maya that went beyond their daily cafe interactions. Maya had given Emma her phone number, and they texted each other in the evenings. Emma would show David the conversations on her phone, and he could see how much this friendship meant to his daughter. "Maya invited me to come watch her brother's robotics competition next weekend," Emma wrote to her father one evening. "Can we go? I've never had a friend invite me to something before." David's heart ached reading those words. Emma had attended the most exclusive private schools in the city, but she had never felt included enough to be invited to events. The social connections that came naturally to hearing children had always been difficult for Emma to develop. "Of course we can go," David wrote back in Emma's notebook. "I'd love to meet Maya's brother." The robotics competition was held at Tommy's high school on a Saturday morning. David and Emma arrived to find a gymnasium filled with teenagers, and their families gathered around tables displaying various robot creations. The energy in the room was exciting, with young people explaining their projects and demonstrating what their robots could do. Maya spotted them immediately and came over with a huge smile. She was dressed casually in jeans and a school t-shirt, her hair in a ponytail, looking much younger than she did in her cafe uniform. Beside her was a boy who was clearly her brother. Tommy had the same warm smile as Maya and intelligent eyes that showed his passion for his work. "Emma, Dad, this is my little brother Tommy," Maya said while signing. "Tommy, this is Emma and her father, Mr. Martinez." Tommy's face lit up when he saw Emma, and his hands began moving in enthusiastic sign language. "Hi, Emma. Maya told me all about you. She says you're really smart and you love reading. I love reading too, especially science books." Emma's response was immediate and animated. "Hi, Tommy. Your robot is amazing. Did you build it yourself? Maya says you want to be an engineer. I think that's so cool." David watched in amazement as Emma and Tommy began an excited conversation about robotics, science, and their favorite books. They communicated effortlessly in sign language, their faces bright with the joy of meeting someone who shared their interests and could understand them completely. "They're going to be great friends," Maya said to David as they watched the teenagers talk. "Emma needs more friends her age who understand her world." "You're right," David agreed. "I've been so focused on trying to fix Emma's deafness that I forgot she just needs to be accepted for who she is." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Deafness isn't something that needs to be fixed. It's just a different way of experiencing the world. Tommy has taught me that deaf people aren't missing anything. They just process information differently, and sometimes that gives them advantages that hearing people don't have." As if to prove Maya's point, Tommy's robot performed flawlessly during the competition. His careful attention to visual details and his ability to focus without being distracted by noise had helped him create a robot that was more precise than many of the others. When Tommy's team won second place, Emma cheered silently but enthusiastically, her pride in her new friend obvious to everyone around them. After the competition, Maya invited David and Emma to have lunch with her family. They went to a small restaurant near the school where Tommy and Emma continued their animated conversation, while David talked with Maya's parents, Maria and Carlos. "Maya has told us so much about Emma," Maria said warmly. "She talks about your daughter every day after work. Emma has become very special to our Maya." David learned that Maya's family had immigrated from Mexico when Maya was 10 years old. Carlos worked construction, and Maria cleaned houses, and they had worked multiple jobs to support their family and pay for Tommy's education. When Tommy was diagnosed as deaf, they couldn't afford expensive programs, but they had never considered giving up on him. "We knew Tommy was special from the time he was very young," Carlos explained through Maya's translation. "Being deaf doesn't change how smart you are. We just had to learn a different way to communicate with him." David was humbled by this family's strength and love. They had achieved more with limited resources than he had accomplished with unlimited money, simply because they had approached Tommy's deafness with acceptance and determination rather than seeing it as a problem to solve. During lunch, David noticed something remarkable happening. Emma was completely comfortable and relaxed in a way he had never seen before. She was part of the conversation, included in the family's warm dynamic, and treated as a valuable member of the group. For the first time, David saw what normal social interaction looked like for Emma when communication barriers were removed. "Mr. Martinez," Maya said as they were finishing lunch, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but would you be interested in bringing Emma to our family dinners sometimes? We get together every Sunday, and Tommy would love to have a friend his age to talk with. Emma would be very welcome." David felt his throat tighten with emotion. Maya's family was inviting Emma into their lives, not because they felt sorry for her, but because they genuinely enjoyed her company. This was what Emma needed, to be valued for who she was, rather than pitied for what she couldn't do. "Emma would love that," David said. "And so would I." Emma's face glowed with happiness when Maya translated the invitation. She wrote quickly in her notebook, "Dad, can we really come to Sunday dinners? I've never been part of a family gathering where I could understand everything that was happening." David read his daughter's words and realized how much she had been missing. In his own extended family gatherings, Emma had always been on the outside of conversations, isolated by the communication barrier that others didn't know how to bridge. But Maya's family had learned to include everyone naturally. Over the following weeks, David and Emma became regular visitors at Maya's family Sunday dinners. David was amazed by the warm, inclusive atmosphere that made sign language feel natural rather than special or unusual. Tommy and Maya's parents had learned to sign while speaking, so conversations flowed seamlessly between hearing and deaf family members. During these dinners, David also learned more about Maya's dreams and struggles. She was incredibly talented and motivated, but lacked the financial resources to pursue her education full-time. She wanted to start a program to train more people to work with deaf children, but she couldn't afford to quit her cafe job to focus on school. Emma had also confided to David that Maya sometimes struggled to pay her bills even while working 2 jobs. Her family helped each other, but there never seemed to be enough money for extras like new clothes or educational opportunities that could help Maya advance her career. David found himself thinking about Maya's situation frequently. He had more money than he could ever use, while this extraordinary young woman who had transformed his daughter's life was struggling to afford basic necessities. Maya had given Emma something priceless: confidence, friendship, and a sense of belonging. But Maya herself was barely getting by financially. One evening, David was working in his study when Emma came in with her notebook. She wrote, "Dad, I've been thinking about Maya. She's done so much for us. But she works so hard and still doesn't have enough money. Is there something we could do to help her?" David looked at his daughter's words and realized that Emma had inherited more than just his green eyes. She had also developed his ability to see problems and think about solutions. But unlike David's business instincts, Emma's concern came from pure kindness and gratitude. "What do you think we should do?" David wrote back. Emma thought for a moment, then wrote, "Maybe we could help pay for her college classes, or help her start the program she wants to create for deaf children. She has such big dreams, but she can't pursue them because she needs to work all the time." David smiled at his daughter's generous heart. Emma was absolutely right. Maya had given them something invaluable, and they had the resources to give her something equally important in return: the opportunity to pursue her dreams and help other families like theirs. That night, David began planning something that would change all of their lives forever. He was going to find a way to help Maya achieve her goals while creating something that would benefit deaf children and their families throughout the city. It would be his way of thanking the young woman who had taught him how to connect with his own daughter. The cafe visits continued. The Sunday dinners became a cherished tradition, and David's sign language skills improved steadily. But most importantly, Emma was becoming the confident, happy teenager she had always been meant to be. She just needed people in her life who communicated with her in her own language and valued her for exactly who she was. 3 months after their first meeting at Sunrise Cafe, David Martinez sat in his corporate boardroom with an unusual mix of people around the polished conference table. Maya sat beside Emma, both looking nervous but excited. Tommy was there with his parents, Maria and Carlos, all dressed in their best clothes. David's lawyer and financial advisor occupied their usual seats, but their expressions showed they had never been part of a meeting quite like this one. "I've asked everyone here today because I want to propose something that will change all of our lives," David began, his voice filled with an emotion his business associates had never heard before. 3 months ago, I was a successful businessman but a failing father. I had everything money could buy, but I couldn't communicate with the most important person in my world, my daughter Emma." Emma smiled at her father and signed, "Tell them about Maya, Dad." David had become conversational in sign language, though he still relied on Maya to translate the more complex parts. "Maya changed everything for us. She didn't just serve us lunch that first day. She showed me what my daughter needed. She demonstrated that Emma doesn't need to be fixed or cured. She needs to be understood and valued for who she is." Maya shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She was wearing a simple dress that David suspected was her only nice outfit, and she kept glancing around the impressive boardroom as if she didn't belong there. David wanted to change that feeling immediately. Maya, you've told me about your dream to create a comprehensive program for deaf children and their families. You want to train teachers, provide resources for parents, and create a community where deaf children can thrive. Today, I want to make that dream a reality. Maya's eyes widened in shock. Mr. Martinez, I don't understand. What do you mean? David slid a folder across the table to her. Inside that folder is a business plan that my team has been working on for weeks. We want to create the Martinez Santos Center for Deaf Education and Family Support. You would be the director, and we would provide full funding to get started. Maya opened the folder with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the documents, growing wider with each page. Mr. Martinez, this says you want to invest $2 million. That's impossible. I can't accept this. You're not accepting charity, David said firmly. You're accepting a business partnership. This center will serve dozens of families in our city. You have the vision and skills to run it. I have the financial resources to fund it. Together, we can create something that will help hundreds of deaf children and their families over the years. Tommy had been reading over Maya's shoulder, and his face showed pure amazement. He signed rapidly to Maya. This is real. Look at all the programs they want to include. Speech therapy, sign language classes for families, social events, educational support, job training for deaf teenagers. Everything we wished we had when I was little. Emma was practically bouncing in her chair with excitement. She signed to Maya. You could help so many families, and Tommy could help too when he gets older. Maria and Carlos looked overwhelmed as Maya translated the conversation for them. Carlos spoke in Spanish, and Maya translated his words. My father says this is like a miracle. He wants to know what we did to deserve such kindness. David looked at Carlos with respect. Your family taught me something I couldn't learn in any business school. You showed me that love and communication matter more than money and success. Maya gave my daughter her confidence back. Tommy showed Emma what's possible for her future. Your whole family welcomed us and made Emma feel valued. You gave us gifts we can never repay. Maya was crying now, tears streaming down her face as she continued reading the business plan. Mr. Martinez, this is everything I've ever dreamed of and more, but I don't have the education or experience to run something this big. I'm just a waitress who learned sign language to help my brother. You're much more than that, David said gently. You're someone who sees potential in every person you meet. You're someone who learned a complex skill just to help your family. You're someone who makes every customer feel special, even when you're tired from working double shifts. Those are the qualities that make great leaders, not college degrees or business experience. David's lawyer spoke up. Mr. Martinez has also arranged for you to complete your education with full financial support. You'll attend classes in the evenings while running the center, and will provide whatever additional training you need to feel confident in your role. Maya looked around the table, her face showing a mixture of joy, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude. I can't believe this is really happening. 3 months ago, I was struggling to pay for community college classes. Now you're offering me the chance to run my own program? Our program, David corrected. This will be a partnership. You bring the vision and heart. I bring the funding and business experience. Emma and Tommy will be our first advisory board members, helping us understand what young deaf people really need. Emma signed enthusiastically. Maya, you have to say yes. Think of all the kids like me and Tommy who need what you can give them. Tommy added his own encouragement. Maya, remember when we were little and you used to tell me I could do anything if I worked hard enough? You were right, but I also needed people who believed in me. Now you can be that person for lots of other kids. Maya wiped her tears and looked at her family. Maria nodded encouragingly, and Carlos gave her a thumbs up with a huge smile. Maya turned back to David and said, Yes, I want to do this. I want to help other families the way you've all helped each other. The room erupted in celebration. Emma jumped up to hug Maya, and Tommy joined them in an enthusiastic group hug. Maria and Carlos were crying happy tears, and even David's usually serious lawyer was smiling. Over the following hour, they discussed the details of the center. It would be located in a building David owned downtown, with classrooms for sign language instruction, therapy rooms for individual support, a technology center where deaf students could learn job skills, and a large community room for social events and family gatherings. Maya would start immediately, with a generous salary that would allow her to quit her cafe job and focus entirely on the center. She would have a team of assistants, including some current teachers from deaf education programs around the city. Tommy would have a summer internship helping to design the technology programs, and Emma would help plan activities for teenage deaf students. "I have one more surprise," David said as their meeting was winding down. He slid another envelope across to Maya. "This is a check to cover your family's expenses for the next year while we get everything set up. Your parents shouldn't have to worry about bills while you're building your dream." Maya stared at the check and immediately started crying again. "Mr. Martinez, this is too much. We can't accept this level of generosity." "You already gave me something priceless," David replied. "You gave me my daughter back. You showed me how to communicate with Emma and connect with her in a way I never thought possible. This center isn't just charity. It's an investment in something that will help families for generations to come." Carlos spoke in Spanish again, and Maya translated through her tears. "My father says our family will work every day to prove worthy of your trust. He says this gift will be passed forward to every family we help." Emma wrote in her notebook and showed it to everyone. "Maya, you changed my whole life in one day just by talking to me in my language. Now you can do that for hundreds of other kids who feel invisible and left out." 6 months later, the Martinez Santos Center for Deaf Education and Family Support held its grand opening. The event was attended by families from throughout the city, many of whom had children or relatives who were deaf. Local television stations covered the story, and several other cities inquired about creating similar programs. Maya stood at the front of the crowded community room, confident and professional in her role as center director. She had completed additional training courses and worked with educational consultants to develop comprehensive programs. But her natural warmth and understanding remained her greatest assets in connecting with families. 6 months ago, I was a waitress with big dreams but no way to achieve them, Maya addressed the crowd while signing. Today, we're opening a center that will serve deaf children and their families in ways I never imagined possible. This happened because one father was willing to learn his daughter's language and one daughter was brave enough to hope for understanding. Emma stood beside her father in the crowd, beaming with pride as she watched her friend address the audience. Emma was wearing a beautiful dress that David had bought for the occasion, but more importantly, she was wearing a confidence and happiness that no amount of money could have purchased. Tommy was demonstrating the center's new technology lab to a group of teenagers and their parents. At 16, he had become a peer mentor for younger deaf students, showing them that their futures had no limits. His enthusiasm and success inspired every family he met. David watched the celebration with a deep sense of satisfaction that surpassed any business achievement. His relationship with Emma had been completely transformed. They communicated easily in sign language now, sharing thoughts and jokes and dreams in ways that felt natural and comfortable. Emma had also gained confidence in all areas of her life. She had started public speaking at deaf community events and was considering careers in education or advocacy. But perhaps the most meaningful part of David's transformation was his expanded perspective on success and happiness. He had learned that true wealth came from relationships and community rather than bank accounts and business deals. He had discovered that the most important problems couldn't be solved with money alone. They required time, patience, and genuine human connection. The center quickly became a hub for the deaf community in their city. Maya's programs included sign language classes for hearing family members, support groups for parents of deaf children, job training for deaf teenagers and adults, and social events that brought families together. The technology lab that Tommy had helped design provided deaf students with skills for future careers in engineering and computer science. Emma became one of the center's most effective ambassadors, sharing her story with other families and encouraging young deaf people to pursue their dreams. She and Tommy started a peer mentoring program for deaf teenagers, helping them navigate social challenges and plan for their futures. David had found a new purpose for his wealth and business skills. He began investing in other programs that served underrepresented communities, always looking for passionate leaders like Maya who had vision but needed resources. He had learned that the most rewarding investments were in people and programs that created positive change in individual lives. A year after the center opened, David and Emma still visited Sunrise Cafe regularly. It had become their tradition, a reminder of where their new life had begun. Maya no longer worked there, but she often joined them for coffee when her schedule allowed. "Do you ever regret leaving the cafe?" David asked Maya during one of these visits. Maya smiled and signed her response so Emma could be included in the conversation. "I loved working here, but the cafe was just the beginning for me. This is where I learned that small acts of kindness can change everything. Now I get to do that every day with families who need hope and support." Emma added her own thoughts. "Maya, you taught me that being deaf doesn't mean being different in a bad way. It just means being different in a special way. Now I want to help other kids learn that too." David looked at his daughter and Maya, these two remarkable young women who had taught him everything that truly mattered, and realized that the best moments in life weren't planned or purchased. They happened when people chose to see potential instead of problems, when they offered understanding instead of judgment, and when they opened their hearts to possibilities they had never imagined. The simple act of a waitress greeting a deaf customer in sign language had created ripples that touched dozens of families and would continue spreading for years to come. David had learned that real success wasn't measured in dollars or deals, but in lives changed and dreams fulfilled. And every day at the center, those dreams were taking flight.